Hi, my name is Geert Van Gele and I would like to talk about the interpretation of jazzy music. This video is part of a series which accompany the iBook Thoughts on the Recorder, which is available through my webshop kettenbergrecordings.be. You can find a link in the description, and I've also included a clickable link at the end of this video if you want to learn more about it. I deliberately refrain from calling this style jazz because jazz is an improvisational art. Again, I stay away from this since this is a completely different world. What we as classical musicians can aspire to is playing scores which are written in a jazzy style, with idiomatic elements taken from the jazz. This is a lot of fun since all of us do have a connection with these style elements through listening to pop, rock and/or jazz music. Maybe, like me, you have had experience playing in a pop rock band. Luckily, there are quite some scores available for us recorder players, thanks to composers as Pete Rose, Paul Linhouts and others. I'm sure this repertoire is only going to grow more and more in the coming years. Apart from compositions which are strictly written in a jazzy idiom, there are a ton of pieces that contain jazzy elements in otherwise postmodern compositions. Off the top of my head I can think again Pete Rose, Benjamin Thorne. When interpreting these compositions, we luckily don't have to do the actual improvisation. The important thing to consider is the famous line, "It ain't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing." It may seem as a no-brainer, but as a classically trained musician, this is not such an easy thing to do. Yes, we all know that the fast notes need to have some kind of inequality to them. 2/8 notes should be performed as a quarter and the 8th note together being a triplet. And the music needs to have a dance feel. That's often as far as we know. I attended once a class of my good friend Pete Rose, who was coaching a recorder ensemble during an Amherst Early Music Festival in the US, where he was explaining about interpreting 8th notes unequally. He said the following: "Classical musicians interpret jazz inequality often like somebody who is holding a jump rope with both hands in one hand and swinging it around vertically. Every time the rope hits the ground, you get an accentuated, prolonged note, and the other note becomes a lot shorter in order to get to the next prolonged note. This gives a very bouncy and almost asthmatic feel to the melody, and thus should be avoided. On the contrary, one should imagine to be on an American highway on a hot summer day, where you as a driver feel the contact of the car on the road while you are driving fast and with the air conditioning blowing in your face. This horizontal fast-forward going motion will make the 8 notes almost equal while thinking dabba dabba dooba dabba dooba dabba dooba da. An image I have since used whenever I had to explain jazz inequality. Another pretty big item to pay attention to is what they call phrasing. This is creating accents in varying degrees. Notes are grouped into cells by accenting certain notes. The effect is that you create a drive in your playing. These accents shouldn't be fixed, but they can be placed on different notes each time you play. If one considers them purely rhythmically, one can think of them as how a jazz drummer works with his drum set. The way that the jazz drummer chooses to put the accents when driving the beat is comparable to how you as a soloist can phrase your melody. It's also a good idea to always remember that the drive of a jazz rhythm section, both the bass and the drums, comes from what they call on top of the beat. This means that the driving of the ride cymbal or the walking bass happens on the very beginning of the beat, eagerly as if they want to speed up, eagerly to keep the conversation going. The result is that the music gets this happy, energetic character, full of vigor. If one compares this with some types of rock music like hard rock for instance, there the beat is often situated on the back of the beat, meaning that the drive is being created by arriving almost too late, given effect as if the drums and bass have to work really hard to get the beats out. The sounding result is this mean, often angry character that so often colors this music. I don't mean this in the negative way, because I'm a hard rocker at heart. Like in rock and hard rock, the main beats in jazz music are the 2 and the 4 in the measure of 4. For classical musicians, this feels counterintuitive at first, and it really needs to be practiced in order to become a second nature. Your metronome can be of a big help here, where you make sure that you place the beats on the 2 and the 4. If needed, you can start slower in order to get things coordinated correctly. You will be able to make the music swing, get a good drive going, while phrasing in an interesting way. Besides this, there are still quite some little ornaments that are so typical in jazz, like the bending of the notes, glissandi, like trills, and shakes that make for a welcome variation. One can go really far with applying those, but at the same time there are plenty of great jazz performers who do very little of these ornaments. When one thinks of an R&B singer or a gospel singer, French Baroque ornamentation starts to sound pretty meager compared to these. In order to learn those ornaments and apply them, I suggest to listen to different kinds of jazz performers. You'll quickly start to feel how and where to apply these in a much more effective and organic manner than I would ever be able to explain. If you're not familiar with listening to jazz music, it's important to start from a jazz style with which you can connect to, and slowly branch out by visiting neighboring styles of that period. For me, this was the only way I could start to understand this complicated language. I started from funk, fusion, and simultaneously with early swing, New Orleans big band, in order to slowly work my way up to the most difficult jazz idiom, bebop. By approaching bebop historically from both sides, I was able to slowly get into it. I do want to remind here that this way of familiarizing yourself with new styles is the exact same concept that I've conceived in my book to describe the different styles, starting from the known and branching out into the unknown. That's it for now. If you follow the link, you can watch the next video on how to familiarize yourself with Renaissance music. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.